Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Pulse Pod, coming to the end of August now. And it's been a very promising start for Hartlepool United, having been unbeaten in their first five games. We've won our two home games, we've won one of our away games, and we have drawn the other two. And joining me today, it's in two parts because availability, what can you do? First part, we have Adam with us. Hello, Adam, how are we?
I'm not too bad, mate. Not too bad. How are you?
Excellent, not too bad myself, and all the better for the results that we've been picking up, especially over the bank holiday weekend, as many Pools fans have dreaded for, let's say, the first month of the season. The bank holiday weekend comes around, and we've got PTSD, I think it's safe to say, from past seasons. You look at the likes of Chesterfield away, walking away, where we went 2-0 up, and, for want of a better phrase, collapsed, whether that be because of injuries, because of suspensions, because of red cards, etc. But this time around, it's looked a bit more positive. We'll start with the Saturday game against Woking, 3-0 there, and it certainly seemed like a comprehensive performance. It seemed like a performance where we weren't particularly troubled at the back, and we took our chances when they came.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was anything particularly flash. I wouldn't say it was a massively dominant performance, but we did what we had to. When the chances came, we took them. And like you've said yourself, it was a comprehensive win, 3-0, clean sheets. I mean, that being said, Walking had chances, I think they'd be kicking themselves when you look at a few of them that had. Probably could have scored at least one, but thankfully for us, they didn't. Clean sheet intact, and yeah, no complaints at all from that game.
Special mention goes to the club tweet for Aidan O'Brien's shot leaving the stadium, which I think got a bit of a laugh from the fan base as well. And looking at it on the replay, it was very much accurate. But looking at the defensive side of things, we've kept four clean sheets in our first five. We'll come on to Southend shortly. But in that game, Harvey Cartwright, he seems like the keeper that was worth waiting for. We saw Simon Grayson at the start of the season saying he was waiting for the right signing to come in rather than rushing and getting any keeper that was available. And it certainly looked like in the first month of the season that he is the keeper that was worth the wait.
Yeah, patience is a virtue, and he's definitely been worth waiting for. It's such, it makes such a difference when you have a keeper like him. We've been crying now for someone like him for a few years now. I mean, this is a department where seemingly Bulls have always excelled. Do you know what I mean? We've always had good keepers despite everything. But obviously, like I've said in recent seasons, it's always been seemingly a weakling for Hartlepool United. But this year, we've got someone in Harvey Cartwright who's young. He seems confident in most aspects of his game. He's commanding. He is just an all-round good, decent goalkeeper. He's already saved a penalty, albeit it was an awful penalty, but it's still a penalty save nevertheless. So, yeah, he's off to a great start. His confidence will be booming. And yeah, he's one small part of what's been so far a great defence so far this season.
Absolutely. And just looking at his profile there, just over 6 foot, 6'1", I think, 1.93 meters. It came up as 1.93 on Google, and I was thinking, well, what's that in feet? And I couldn't think of how tall that was, but he certainly looks a unit on the pitch. Moving on to Southend, there were quite a few times in that game where he kept us in the game and made some crucial saves at crucial times, particularly in the one-on-one situations where it felt like, unlike the previous games, our defence had been a little bit slack and let teams play through, let the players from Southend through, particularly Charlie Kendall, who seemed to have his own personal war with Harvey Cartwright at times. And it's just one of those where you have a keeper who has such a presence about him, particularly in one-on-ones, to see that charging out at you, it's not particularly easy to get past him.
Yeah, I've been quite public on Twitter, I think over the last couple of days, and I've said he was the difference in that game for Hartlepool United. At 1-0, he was the reason Poole still had a chance of getting a result. He made so many impressive saves that kept us in the game. I mean, it was one of those when you concede 2-0, when you concede 2-0, when you concede a goal as early as we did after 2 minutes, it really, it knocks confidence, it sets the tone, it can very easily go one way. And I felt like it was going to in the first half. And I feel like had we won in at half time, had we been 2 or 3 nil down, I don't think I'd have complained. We just seemingly weren't at it. Structurally, I think we were unbalanced. But thankfully, Harvey Cartwright, a couple of decent saves in the first half. We got in at 1-0. the changes he made. I wasn't sure whether he'd be brave enough to make them at half time, whether he'd wait, maybe persevere a little bit, but he didn't. He did what had to be done. A couple of changes at half time, and it flipped the game on its head. I've been quite public about my feelings about Luke Charman. I'm not his biggest fan, but credit where credit's due. Again, I don't think he did anything flash when he came on, but what he did well. He caused problems, and look, it's a deflection on the way in from Sharon, but that's the sort of luck we needed in that game. We desperately needed that bit of luck, and thankfully it fell for us. We've seen things like that go against us so many times, and yeah, credit to the lads. We showed great character. We dug deep, and we got a really, really good point, which I'm sure we all would have took before 3 o'clock. So that's not to be begrudged at all. So hopefully the lads take the positives from that, and we keep moving on. But yeah, I agree. Defensively, that's the most fragile we've been. I think that's the worst I've seen Tom Parks as well. Respectfully, in a pool shirt, I think he was really, really suspect. There was a few moments, a few lapses of concentration between him and Maxim Kawogan, but like I say, it's all part and parcel. I'm sure the lads will look at that, learn from it, and make sure those type of mistakes aren't repeated moving forward.
I think you're right about Tom Parks. Just seemed like he was out of tune with the rest of the defensive line, which being out for 2 games is understandable. He was rotated for the Altrincham game, as Simon Grayson said afterwards, and it did look like someone who hadn't really been playing with that side for a little while for the last 2 games, as I said. And was it a surprise to you in a way that he was brought back in as part of that side, given that we'd won the last two? I know it was a short turnaround from the walking game and rotation was probably necessary, but given that we'd conceded, nothing up to that point, we'd won the last 2 games 2-0 and 3-0 with that back line. Was it a surprise at the time?
A little bit, because I think we know that the starting 11's recently, very good, very competitive, and you'd argue there's been no need to change. Obviously, we know Jay Ben's injured, so you can understand at the moment, obviously having to make do with that. But in terms of the centre halves, I would have assumed you would have stuck with Kawogan, McNally, and John. But obviously, like you've said, the turnaround, we've been playing Tuesday, Saturday, Monday, so you can understand the need to give people a rest, give other people time on the pitch as well. So yeah, look, Tom Parks has been a great player. He was up there as one of the player of the years last year, so he's someone you always have faith in. But look, like you've said, being out the team, in and out of it, you can maybe understand why he's been a bit shaky. Like I say, he's a great professional, so no doubt he'll learn from there. And like I say, you very rarely see bad performances from someone like him, do you?
Absolutely right. And you also mentioned Luke Charman there as well, who's had up and down career at Hull so far. I think it's fair to say. You remember that game against Solihull last season where he contributed with 3 assists in that 4-3 victory, and it's just something he hasn't really replicated on a consistent basis. If he had done, he'd be in the side a lot more. But yesterday, sorry, we're recording this on Wednesday, so on Monday, again, it was a sign that he still can contribute. He won the free kick that led to the goal, and he just looked like a threat. He looked like a nuisance, I think is the right word, on that right hand side.
Yeah, 100% nuisance, pest, whatever adjective you want to use. Like I say, it has been turbulent. He's hit and miss, divides opinion, but hopefully this year, we can see a lot more from Luke Charman. I do believe there's a lot more in the locker. You know, Obviously, at Hartlepool United as of late, it hasn't been great. A lot of instability on the pitch with chopping and changes of managers, styles of play. So, the way we've started with Simon Grayson, maybe, he can unlock all of that potential and hopefully we can see a lot more of him. And Adam Campbell, for example, do you know what I mean? Players who I believe have the ability but just haven't so far been able to showcase it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Jay Ben as well. A shame that he went down. He's been one of our, it's a bit unfair to say promising because a lot of the pre-season was promising in that area, particularly the new signings. But he was certainly one of the standouts in pre-season, having dropped from League One Lincoln. And when he went down at Altrincham, it was a concern, naturally. But Jermaine Francis did fill in very well there, and he's proven his versatility in the past in that area. Depending on how long J Ben is out for, Is that a solution potentially just to play Francis there until he comes back, or would you potentially look at the likes of Louis Stevenson? Reece McNally's proven that he can play a bit wider. What would the preferred solution be if he's out for longer than say a couple of weeks?
I mean, look, that Altrincham game in the second half, you saw Francis at right wing back, and the bloke didn't look out of place. With the greatest respect in the world, he did not look out of place going forward, but then he was quite happy to, come back, track back to all the hard work, try and stop those crosses going in. I mean, for me, I think the preference would be Francis. I think we've already seen that he can play there. So if that's going to be the preference of the manager, then I'm not against it. Obviously, so far we haven't seen much of Louis Stevenson, if anything, so far this season. So does that highlight that the preference would be with Francis? I would like to say, but like I say, I'm not against it.
Where does well for Basat Topalai on the left hand side, who's proven to be a very astute signing, shall we say? Because he went a little bit under the radar with the likes of Johnson and Reed coming in up front. We had the likes of McNally and Corgan at the back. And he went a little bit under the radar coming in on loan from Bromley with the option in January, I believe, as well. And he's proven that experience can count in this division. Obviously, he went up with Bromley before, and he's been excellent from that side, notably that assist on Saturday for Walking for Francis's goal, funnily enough.
Yeah, I said in pre-season, I didn't go to many games in pre-season, but the two people who caught my eye from the maybe two or three games I did go to were the two fullbacks. I could be getting carried away. Obviously, I don't want to. It's very early on, but it does remind me a lot of 2021 when you have Sterry and Ferguson, both with the ability to go forward, chip in with goals, chip in with assists, have an eye for a good ball in the box. I get that from these guys. They are really good. They're coming back. They're doing what they're doing defensively. Just two very good full backs. I think so far they've proved that they could be very key players this season, especially if we are going to be in the later part of it, challenging up there for the top seven, maybe even higher. Who knows?
And speaking of key players as well, we go a bit further forward on the pitch towards Alex Reed, who's started very well in a pull shirt, as we've all seen there. Goals to talk about. Finally, it's nice to have a goal scorer after Manny Desiree, when we all thought that we'd struggle to replace him, and naturally so. He'd proven to be our go-to for goals in the last two seasons. But obviously, Alex Reed has took that baton and he's certainly run with it.
Yeah, we all thought the world was going to end, didn't we, when Manny left, which is understandable. It's always a hard position to replace. Manny D, he gets at least 20 goals a season, so you can understand the trepidation, the anxiety, but Alex Reid is phenomenal. Really good in many different aspects of his game. Got an eye for a goal, the goal at Altrincham, hell of a finish. I think is that now 3 goals in three for Alex Reid in
I
great
believe so.
form.
If you leave out the Southend game, yeah, he got 3 and 3 between Braintree, Altrincham, and Woking.
Yeah, took his goal well against Walker when he's rounded the keeper. Great ball from Matty Daly. So yeah, he's hit the ground running, which is what you want at this level. Um, I will say, in terms of his partner up front, Danny Johnson, I'm a little bit, obviously he hasn't hit the ground running. I think Danny needs a goal. I think Danny just needs that goal, get some confidence going through him, and hopefully he can get off the mark and just, hopefully kick on and progress. But it's been a bit of a tough start to life, I think, for Danny at Pils.
Yeah, I am going to come on to Matty Daly shortly because you just mentioned him. But with regards to Danny Johnson, is he something of a victim of the system potentially? Because we've focused a lot on defending in the last few games, and Danny Johnson has been that sort of player, particularly in pre-season. He did get a few goals in pre-season, but they were all in and around the 6 yard box and towards the goal line. Whereas our system so far has basically been it's been catered towards sort of hitting teams on the break. You see Alex Reed's goals against Woking and against Altrincham, they were coming forward on the break. And the other side of it, which is very weird for Hartlepool United, it's fair to say, is set pieces, because we've never been that thingy with set pieces. But you look at the corner for Altrincham, you look at the crosses coming in against Woking. Is he a victim of the system as such, because he is very much a penalty box striker?
Maybe you make a good point there when you look at some of the goals we've scored early on. It could well be, it could just be that, the chances that we are creating are just more, are more, what's the word? More suited to an Alex Reid as opposed to a Danny Johnson. I mean, who knows? I mean, fingers crossed, like I say, hopefully if he gets a goal even on Saturday against Boreham Wood, hopefully, that gives him the confidence to kick on and, hopefully have a good campaign. He's just signed this summer, new manager. It's going to take time, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? But like I say, hopefully it's just a case of time more than anything else.
Absolutely, and we did say we mentioned Matty Daly in a bit more detail as well. His coming into the side was a little bit fortuitous on his behalf because it was unfortunate for Ben that he had to go off, and it was Daly who came on to replace him with Francis moving to wing back. And Matty Daly had a bit of a under par return because he was on the bench. He'd signed quite late into pre-season, so he didn't really start that many games. But since he came in at Altrincham, he's been excellent. He looks as though he's got that touch required, the first touch. He's got the vision, as he's shown, with the passes to Alex Reid for the goal at Woking as well. And potentially one door closing for Ben, another one potentially opening for Matty Daly, perhaps.
Yeah, I would definitely prefer Matty Daly as the 10. Technically very able, really good player. I mean, I enjoyed him in his loan spell when he came here. We knew what he was about when he signed this summer. Got an eye for a pass. I mean, look at the goal that he helped create against Woking for Alex Reid. So for me, I'm not surprised at all, and I'll be very sad to not see him be a main a main figure in the 11.
Yes, and the same goes for Jamie Miley as well with his pass against Altrincham. It feels a little bit, you know, we do need to mention that because it was an outstanding pass as well going forward for Alex Reid. And it certainly looks as though Reid is that sort of striker, just going back to him for a moment, where if you play a ball in behind, he is able to run onto it and cause problems.
Absolutely. Got a good read of the game, good understanding of the game. I've said to a few people, not so much publicly, but in private, I've said it could be a big year for Jamie Miley. As Pools now look to move on from Nicky Featherstone. And I think alongside Sharon, it's a great midfield partnership. So, yeah, I'm just hoping he progresses really well this season. Again, technically very able, got an eye for a pass. So, yeah, I'm just hoping we see a lot of good stuff from him this year. Obviously, the one bad thing is we all know how it ends when you have these young players who, they do have good seasons, they catch the eye of people, but I suppose that's part and parcel of football, isn't it? Sadly.
Absolutely. And hopefully this continues because, the more that we develop players, the more that clubs will feel that we are a club that they can send players to develop for them. And fingers crossed, some of those players do fall in love with us and, they don't want the Premier League anymore and they just stay in the National League or hopefully League Two come next season. I'm sure we'll get onto that during the season as well. But looking forward to Boreham Woods, we've mentioned it a couple of times. We've got Boreham Wood and Boston, our next two games, both at home. And given the start that we've made to the season, it does feel important to carry on the momentum, particularly with games at home against teams that, with all respect to those teams, particularly Boreham Wood having just been promoted, we should really be taking 3 points from.
Yeah, I said to you before we started recording, going into these two games, you aspire for 6 points out of 6 points. You would be disappointed to see Bulls drop any points. I think if I'm being lenient, I would say at least get 4 out of 6. But I feel like this is a good opportunity to get a big 6 points before what will be a big trip away to Forest Green in a week's time, who are top of the league, have started the season well, they're scoring goals. So let's just take advantage of these games. Do you know what I mean? Where when you do have trips to Forest Green, it might allow you to drop them. A bit like Southend, you don't mind getting a point, but just win your home games.
Absolutely. It's very much a cliche when it comes to runs at the playoffs, runs of promotion, that you should win all of your home games and get a point away, and then you'll be in and around the top positions at the end of the season. You mentioned Forest Green just briefly as well. A very difficult game. The top of the league currently after, I think they've played 4 games, haven't they? Because they were due to play Morecambe before it was postponed. I think they might have played five.
Forest, sorry, Forest Green have played 5, won
They
4,
have
drew
played
1.
5. I can never remember who Morecambe have and haven't played. I think Boston and Scunthorpe are 2 of them, but I can't remember the other two, the other one. But yeah, so again, looking at Forest Green, they've started very well. There were a lot of things about Robbie Savage. I mean, I've said before on this podcast, I think that I was a little bit concerned as to how he'd adapt because I thought even though he's got a very good squad, it may take him some time, but they've certainly hit the ground running. And Forest Green is generally a ground where we've had very little success. So anything that we can take before that has to be positive.
100%. I mean, they've always been a good side, haven't they? They've always been a side competing at the right end of the table. So Yeah, I mean, like many teams, but it's just one that Pools have struggled in terms of getting results from. But like you say, the way we've started, the form that we're in, we're scoring goals, we're conceding very few. We've only conceded one this year. Hopefully that gives Pools the belief to go down to the new lawn this year and hopefully put in a good shift and get a decent result. Again, going into it, you'd take a point, wouldn't you? You would not begrudge a point at all. Anything after that is just a big added bonus. So hopefully Pools can go there on the back of two good results at home and can hopefully go down there and get a result.
Absolutely, and worth saying as well that the only goal that we've conceded was an own goal, excellent volley from Tom Parks. To that point, the only goals that Harvey Cartwright apparently concedes are volleys from his own players, which can only bode well for the rest of the season because we just need to tell him to stop doing that. And, we'll keep plenty more clean sheets, I'm assuming, as well. And the other thing that we haven't touched on, we mentioned the bank holiday curse as such for the last couple of seasons, and one of those things that have come from that is the fact that we've managed to escape from the bank holiday weekend without any injuries. Suspensions to a point as well, but injuries was the main concern, and it looks like everyone's come out of it relatively unscathed.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness. That was one of my biggest worries heading down there on Monday, as I was making the journey down the A1. Obviously, like you've said earlier on, it's always a worry. We've been in a situation many times where pools have started well, we fly on the traps, but then it gets to this point where seemingly it doesn't go as well, and we've seen seasons more or less implode from this point. But I'm glad that we've been able to, go through it relatively unscathed. 4 points out of six, great return. So yeah, hopefully Pools can take confidence from that. Hopefully the fans can take confidence and belief from that, and hopefully we can now just move on and kick on and just keep going along nicely, ticking along as we have been from the opening 5 games.
And I am now going to have to put you on the spot as well because we are coming to the end of August, and we've seen enough, I think, of the teams involved in the. I hesitate to call it a promotion race because at the end of the day, there's only one promotion spot, and the rest of them have to fight it out for the playoffs. But given what we've seen so far from Pools, given what we've seen from the rest of the league, if you've watched any of the rest of the league outside of Pools games, are you confident about where Pools are going to finish this season?
Ah, Jack, do you know what? It was quite funny because I asked the lad I went with on Monday, I asked this question. I said, when do you start believing? When do you start looking at this and go, we can be up there? I feel like we can. I feel like we can very much challenge for a top seven, but I'm going to withhold on saying anything else until maybe late November, early December, when hopefully the table is a truer reflection than it is now. It's going to be tough. I think Southend, after seeing them on Monday, I think they're as good a side as I think you'll see. Great on the ball, great possession based team. Carlisle should be up there, as will Rochdale. But I think hopefully we can be up there. Hopefully, if we can maintain the standard that we've set in an attacking sense, in a defensive sense, I'm confident. But I don't want to get too carried away because we've been down this route, and when you do get carried away, when it doesn't go well, it just hurts even more. But fingers crossed, mate. Fingers crossed. Come next March, next April, we're still talking about Pools being up there, and there and thereabouts.
Do you know what? When you said maybe, I thought you were going to say that you were going to wait till May. I was going to say I think that's a bit after the fact. If you wait until May, 'cause the season finishes in April, and I think it'll be quite obvious by that point. I think the crucial period for me. I mean, firstly, when I did the preview at the start of the season, my big thing about us finishing in the playoffs was that we didn't have a keeper at that point. And I thought if Adam Smith was our number one keeper, I thought that we would struggle because it's very difficult to have a coach as your number one. I think when
Agreed.
we brought Cartwright in, I was a lot more confident because I'd seen people who had him before. We saw Hull and Grimsby, I think, in particular, that had said he was a very good keeper. And after seeing his, performances this month, I think he is very much the missing piece, if you like. I think a bit of depth is needed, particularly up front, because we've seen where Reed or Johnson have gone off. There isn't really the quality there to replace them. It's good that Charman came on and made a difference on Monday, and if he continues that form, brilliant. But there's not too much in the way of striking options behind them. Francis didn't particularly look comfortable up there on Monday. I would say I think it's probably the least effective he's been so far this season as part of that front two. And I think the other thing as well, that period at the end of September, beginning of October, where we've got Gateshead away, Tamworth at home is a very winnable fixture. Then we've got Carlisle away and York at home. That's a very big, sort of localized, if you like, set of fixtures. If we come out of that with a positive total, I think we have to beat Tamworth whatever happens. But if we come out of the other three with a positive total, even if we don't lose, I think that says a lot about where we are this season compared to last. And I think if that does happen, I'd be a lot more confident of a top seven place at that point. As it stands, I do think that a playoff place is very achievable. But it's just a matter of keeping this momentum going. And it's always been said, hasn't it, that title races are built on defences. You know, attacks win your games and defences win your titles if you're going a bit further up the pyramid. And if we can keep the solid defence as we've got, there's no reason why we can't challenge at the top.
I agree. And I've said this when I look at the pool's defence, when I look at the keeper, I think that is good enough to get you up where you need to be. But that is assuming that we can, like you've said, maintain the standard, players keeping injury free. For me, I'm just simply taking one game at a time. We've started well, but it's all about pools maintaining it. Like I've said, I don't want to be negative, but I'm just simply saying the fact we've been in the situation a few times before where we start seasons well and then something happens and then we've seen seasons unravel, implode, managers get sacked. So hopefully we can stay well clear of all of that this year. I'd love to see Grayson be here at the end of next this season. So I think if we can do all that, I agree with what you've said about the depth as well. We do need a couple of more players just to add that quality and depth. I think if we can do all of that, then we all should have a reason to believe and aspire we can be up there. But for me, not looking too far ahead. It is simply one game at a time.
Do you know what? We were doing so well going through an episode without mentioning a manager getting sacked. And then you've just sort of slipped it into that sentence there. We were doing so well. We're trying not to. I mean, to be fair, if he carries on this form, there is no reason for him to be looking at the job centre.
Exactly, 100%. I don't like saying it, but I think you've got to, do you know what I mean? Because going into this season, I feel like before I saw a big bulk of the recruitment, I just thought you feel like it's rinse and repeat all of the time. You're just waiting for the bad patch to come. You're waiting from the pressure from the fans, the cries from the fans, and then it does inevitably come, doesn't it, where managers get sacked. But the way we've started, there's no reason at all to be even thinking like that. Do you know what I mean? It should all be very positive at the moment.
Absolutely. And thank you very much, Adam. I'm assuming you'll be at the two home games and probably at Forest Green as well next Saturday.
I'll be at the two home games. Forest Green at the moment is undecided, but you know me, mates. There's a way. I'll be there.
It's more than likely. Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you very much, Jack. Thank you.
And now we move on to Thursday. It's a day later. Adam has long gone, and I'm now joined by Danny from the Red Radio, fresh off, I believe, the pre-match press conference
Yeah,
at Maiden Castle. Danny, how are you?
I'm not too bad, mate. How are you?
I'm not too bad at all, given the results that we've been getting recently.
Yeah,
Can't really complain, can you? Four points from six over the bank holiday weekend, and the curse. I hesitate to say it's been put to bed because you never know what'll happen next year, but the
for
curse has
this
certainly been
season.
beaten.
For this season.
For this season, that's absolutely right. And obviously, you were at Southend on Monday. You were,
Yeah.
of course, at Woking on Saturday as well. We will come on to that shortly. But since yesterday, we have had some strange news in the division as a whole, in that York have sacked Adam Hinshelwood and replaced him just recently, a short while ago, with Stuart Maidenard, formerly of Notts County, and he was in this division with Wealdstone as well before his move to Meadow Lane. There, Danny, it feels very strange to sack a manager this early into the season, doesn't it?
It does, especially when you look at what he's done as well over the last sort of, I would say, 48 months. Of course, last season, second, probably the only year that would have been second. I can't see another season where, well, I mean, what number of points did they get? They got,
I think
they
it was
break 100?
96.
Or just shy of 100. That's more than enough to get you up in a normal season, isn't it, really, when you look at it? So the one word I'd use is risky. The appointment needs to work out, or otherwise the fans will be firmly on his back.
Absolutely. I mean, you said 96 points is enough to get you up in a normal season in a normal league, but we've seen in the National League teams finishing second in the high 90s
Oh
and
yeah,
not going up. The likes of Wrexham and Tranmere have done it previously. Obviously, they've went up since then, and it is certainly. It feels like he's a victim of sorts of the narrow gap that it takes to get up into League Two, given that there's only one going up automatically.
yeah. I think that's been a discussion though, hasn't it, for well, as long as with the National League that there should be that extra promotion spot. So, if anything, I think this just sort of drives that home a bit that there should probably be another one.
Yeah, I don't think that's particularly up for debate. I think a lot of
No.
people would agree with that, certainly in this division. And I think a lot of the teams in the above division as well would argue for that as well. It now just falls to the EFL to collaborate with the National League, as it were. And Stuart Maynard, as I mentioned, coming in from, well, he was a free agent. He was at Notts County at the time of his sacking. But is it something that you can see being a success for York?
I mean, stylistically, they both want to play the same sort of keep it on the floor football. So depends on how much of a crossover period and principles there'll be there. But I think it's a bit daft to sack him this early into a season. I mean, all right, they drew with Woking, they've only won one of their first four, but still they haven't been beaten. And surely after finishing second, the season before, guiding them well away from relegation, I just think surely he deserves more time, doesn't he?
I think to be fair as well, if you look at the fixtures he's had so far, 3 of those 4 games have been away from home because their stadium is being used for the Women's Rugby World Cup at the moment. So
Yeah.
they've had to play more games away than at home. One of those games was away at Southend, which, as we learnt on Monday, is a very, very difficult game.
Yeah.
They came away from that with a point. They drew away at Woking, which, given how we made Woking look on Saturday, maybe that wasn't
Not a great result, no.
However, like I say, when you're away that many times in a season to this point, drew at home with Sutton. That's a relatively decent result. The one away at Truro, which we've already said, even though we do expect them to struggle this season, it's a very long journey, especially from the north.
Especially this
We're going to
early in
find
the
out.
season as well, when they've just come up and they've got that bounce, that sort of promotion bounce. So that's always a tough sort of opponent.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got Truro on the television, away from home. It's their first home game in the division. It absolutely reeks of a Truro 1 York nil
Yeah.
scoreline. And they've managed to get over that hurdle. And it's a shame for him. I mean, what can you do? I mean, it's what the owner's done. And I suppose it'll just be a matter of seeing whether Stuart Maynard can succeed. Obviously, their game against Rochdale this coming Tuesday has been postponed, partly again because of the Rugby World Cup, and their first home game that they'll actually be able to play is the following Tuesday against Tamworth. I think it's been rearranged to accommodate for the World Cup. So it's been a long time coming since the opening day of the season that they'll be able to play at home next. And looking at another managerial change, we've got Mark Cooper at at Yeovil.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone would say if you're 3-0 up at home to Gateshead at half time, I don't think anyone would be putting a tenner on Gateshead. Let's put it that way. However, I think the atmosphere at full time told its own story given what happened in the second half.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised though, because I thought when we played them opening day, they were a relatively decent outfit. I came away from that game after the first game of the season thinking, you know what? They'll probably be in that 10th to 12th range. They looked solid. They caused us a lot of problems. So to see it sort of unravel already to a Gateshead side that I think it's not unfair to say it's not the same Gateshead we've seen for the last few years. Bit of a shock.
Absolutely. And I mean, the comeback was completed in deep into added time. I'm not
Yeah.
entirely sure of the exact minute, but I think
98, I think it
98,
was.
wasn't it? Yeah, it was very deep into added time, and I think it had been building up against Mark Cooper for a while, as far as I'm aware. I'd seen fan reaction on Twitter to previous results, and he wasn't necessarily a favourite of the fans, and I think it was a moment where it was going to happen in terms of him leaving the club. I mean, it'd be funny to see Adam Hinshelwood rock up at Yeovil if they're looking for a manager. I mean, there has one been made available quite recently.
Well, there was a couple of names chucked around, wasn't there? I mean, I think I seen a report this morning or yesterday that threw Anthony Limbrick in the mix.
Yes, I've seen that.
I tell you what, that would be. I know he caught a few pelters during his time, but I think that would be a brilliant appointment for them. I thought, honestly, really good guy. Was unfortunate not to get this sort of the transfer window. Of course, it's it's worked out for us in the end under Simon Grayson. But you know what? I think that'll be a good job for him.
Yeah, I think he did quite well there. I mean, he was at Walk, and that's probably the most successful he's been in this, certainly in this country, as a manager. And I think going back down south, trying to make that place a fortress, it would certainly do well for him. Another name that's got a new job recently is Darren Sarll, as of today as well. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've seen that one.
I have.
I can't remember the name. It was a Canadian team, if I remember right.
Yeah.
But as the technical something
Head
something
of
something.
coaching and technical something, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, that's a very left field place to go, I think. I mean, to be fair, he's basically done a Simon Grayson, hasn't he? When Simon Grayson went out
Yes,
to
yeah.
Nepal and India and tried to just sort of get away from England and rebuild, if you like. So good luck to him there. And it's interesting to see all these ex-managers being linked with different jobs and getting different jobs elsewhere. Isn't it nice to be able to talk about managerial sackings and not have to mention Hartlepool United?
Oh, it is. It is nice. Oh, it is.
Just for once, it just feels lovely that Simon Grayson's position is absolutely not under threat,
Not in the
unless something's
slightest.
happening behind closed doors that we don't know about.
No,
But
not in the slightest.
it's just wonderful that he's had a very good start, and coming on to that very good start, the bank holiday case, as we've mentioned already, looks to have been put to bed. Let's say an up and down performance at Southend on Monday. I think it's fair to say that the first half was about as bad as we've been this season,
Yeah.
certainly in terms of defensively and going forward as well. Tom Parks with an excellent finish at the wrong end. And I mean, the second half, we bounced back to a point. I think the introduction of Luke Charman helped and Matty Daly. I think Charman, that's probably the best performance he's put in for quite a few months now. And as I said to Adam yesterday, if he manages to keep that form going forward, he'll have a place in the side.
Yeah, I thought Charman absolutely changed the game on Monday when he came on. He caused so many issues down the right hand side when we changed shape, adapted to what they were doing. And for me, it's so nice to see us being proactive and seeing the man in the dugout be proactive. A couple of changes at half time, completely changing the shape. First half, I don't think playing McNally at wing back was probably the best idea, but you can't exactly change the shape when you've had all them good results, really, can you?
No, not really. I mean, changing the unbeaten, or I should say, the defence that had kept 4 clean sheets up to
Yeah,
that point, it stands to reason that you would rotate the side. I mean, it's a very, very short turnaround, as we've
yeah.
learned in previous seasons. That's what's resulted in injuries, partly as well. But I think it was a bit of a risk, and it was identified to a point in the second half. We brought on players that could do a bit more going forward, and I think, to be fair to Tom Parks, it would be very unfortunate to single him out because of what he's done for us since he joined the club. I think that is potentially his worst performance since joining the club, I think it's fair to say as well.
Yeah, I don't think he's had the greatest start to the season, but if the last sort of 12 to 18 months has showed us anything, is that Tom Parks still is a very, very good option in the back line. I mean, last year, one of our players of the season, I think it was between him and Nathan Sharon, really, wasn't it? So I think two bad games. Obviously, the game against Braintree where he gave the pen away to John Akinde, and then that one. He strikes me anyway as the sort of character that would put that behind him.
That's true. I think you mentioned as well about last season. I mean, I had Nathan Sharon. I wouldn't have complained at anyone who put Tom
Yeah,
Parks in there as well. My auntie loves Tom Parks. She'll go to bat for him at any point. There was at least one person on the podcast when we did our end of season review that had Tom Parks as well. He was excellent for his last season. I think it is credit to as well to the recruitment because we have mentioned it briefly about how good our transfer window has been. Where it is credit to the recruitment side of things that one of our standout players from last season.
he's
It's a
barely
bit
getting a
harsh.
look in.
Yeah, it's a bit harsh to say he's been replaced, but at the moment, that back three of McNally, Quogan, and John looks very, very solid.
It does, and it's nice to see nice to see them building a partnership. Even I think it's really, really working. I think they all complement each other really well, and I think especially with the wing backs as well, whether that be J Ben or Francis on the right hand side. I just think it just works, and that's nothing against Tom Parks. It's just that back three is working.
Certainly, and moving back to the goalkeeper, whose clean sheet run unfortunately ended through, I think you'd argue, no fault of his own, given that his
Yeah.
captain decided to volley one past him in the second minute of the game. But he still hasn't conceded to an opposition player
Yeah.
yet. And again, it was one of those in the first half where even though the rest of the team were under par, if it hadn't have been for Harvey Cartwright, it did feel like watching from home, it would have resulted in a lot more at the break.
Yeah, that game we could have conceded about 5 or 6 just by all of the great saves that Cartwright made. And I feel like, well, I spoke to Simon after the game on Monday, and even he said that keepers can win and lose your games. And I think he's won pools, probably more points this season already than I can remember a goalkeeper winning us previously.
Yeah, I think, not disrespect to Ben Killip as well, but I think the
Oh
last
no,
time that we had a goalkeeper that was that influential in the team performance, I think you're looking at the likes of Scott Lodge, Trevor Carson, sort of in
yeah,
our League Two, early National League days, where they were very much a one-man wall at times.
yeah, I think so. And I think if you look at the sides that go up 9 times out of 10, they'll have a set number one who you look at and think he's one of the best in the division. Like York last season with Harrison Mail, for example. They're the sort of sides that when they've got a good goalkeeper, will end up there.
Absolutely, and I mentioned this to Adam yesterday as well when recording, but we said at the start of the season that we were very worried about a goalkeeper at that point because Adam
Yeah,
Smith was still our number one. It was going on for quite a while. But to be fair to Simon Grayson, he did mention on more than one occasion that he was waiting for the right signing rather than rushing in and getting someone who was available. I mean, for example, we saw a lot of furore about Archie Mayer when he was on trial because of what he'd
yeah.
done at other clubs. He didn't really impress on trial, I think it's fair to say. And obviously, Simon Grayson didn't sign him, and people were a bit concerned. But it certainly paid off for him, given what Harvey Cartwright has done in the first month of the season, that he waited for the right man and the right man came in.
I think that's just a credit, as you say, to the recruitment team, to Simon Grayson. And it's a recruitment team that have took a little bit of stick, I think it's fair to say, in recent years. But,
Mhm.
I mean, you can't give them any stick this season. They've got pretty much every signing, I think, to perfection.
Absolutely. And you're looking a bit further forward the pitch as well. Alex Reid has started very well in a pull shed. Didn't get his goal
Yeah.
on Monday, but before that had 3 and 3, including the one at Walking on Saturday. A nice ball forward from Matty Daly. And it was exceptional composure, I think it's fair to say, to take it around the keeper. And he was still a long way out from goal
Yeah.
when he sort of assessed the options and converted the chance.
Yeah, it was a great finish, a great pass, and I think he'll probably be a little bit frustrated that he never got a goal on Monday when the ball fell to him after Francis nicked it off the Southend goalie. But I mean, you can't turn your nose up at that start of the season, can you? Really? What are we? 5 games in, 3 goals. It's a great start.
Yeah, extrapolate that over the season, I think he'll do very well. You can't
Yeah,
really complain about his start at all. And I think, to be fair, it's fair to say that Southend, you saw why in that game they were the other side who hadn't conceded yet
yeah,
this season. It was things like that last minute block. The keeper made some excellent saves in the second half. I think Falarin's header, if he put it anywhere other than where he put it, it was probably 2-1. But it was still a very good reaction save to deny him that as well. And I think it's fair to say they'll probably be up there this season as well. Looking at the other side of our strike force in Danny Johnson, he was excellent in pre-season, scored plenty of goals, at least 4 or 5, I think. I'm not sure of the exact number. But it hasn't really translated into the season. Is it is it because of the system? Is it because he's not getting on the ball enough? Is it because he's very much sort of a 6 yard box striker where he sort of poaches
yeah.
goals? And we haven't really dominated and created that many chances going forward. We've been very clinical when we've had the chances, it's fair to say, but we haven't really created enough chances in the box for him to get on the end of.
And I think a lot of his play has been sort of coming a little bit deeper as well and linking up to Alex Reid. I think it'll come good eventually over the course of the season. Don't get me wrong. I think there will be games where we do dominate the 6 yard box and we're peppering chances into there. And I think he'll still come out with quite a few goals this season, just for one reason or another. First few games just haven't really clicked for him. But I do think that's probably a reason why we need another option up there. Just somebody of a bit of a different profile.
Yeah, that's where I was coming on to in terms of how we could still strengthen. Obviously, we don't have a transfer window in the National League as such. It runs until I think it's March time, if I remember
Yeah.
rightly. So there's no panic. There's no reason to rush like EFL clubs and Premier League clubs to get people in. But I think the main thing for us going forward in terms of recruitment, I think the lack of options off the bench in terms of the attacking side of things could potentially be a concern. The deeper we get into the season and the more games we're playing. I mean, is there a particular profile of attacker that you'd be looking for? Would it be someone out wide? Would it be someone a bit quicker? Maybe someone running in behind the defence? Or would it be more of a target man potentially? Someone to hold up the ball?
Well, I think, we've got a lot of the poacher type. We haven't really seen that true poacher's goal as of yet, really. We've seen Reedy more so running onto stuff and just sort of beating his man and then getting a great shot off. So I would like to see us bring in a true sort of quick striker alongside him. I think Danny Johnson has done a lot of the hold up stuff. So either somebody really, really quick or, as you say, a target man. But I spoke to Simon Grayson earlier and he was talking about, how the transfer window is shutting in a few days. He was talking about how there's some options that the club's looking at. Sounded to me like he was more so hinting towards loan deals and stuff like that, but just sort of waiting for the window to shut.
Absolutely. And with thanks to yourself and the Red Radio, you did speak to Simon Grayson just before coming on today, and we can hear from him now.
Simon, a few days have passed since the hectic bank holiday weekend. Nice to have the best part of a week to recover.
Yeah, look, everybody had the same schedule, different lengths and breadths of the country that everybody was going to, but we're back in on Thursday morning, positive environment, everybody's pleased, obviously 4 points over what I've got led to believe has been a jinx of a bank holiday for the club in the past, but yeah, we were all ready to go, all nice, refreshed after a few days off, and we've got looking forward to the weekend's game now.
Everyone managed to get through it all right?
Yeah, I think the only injury at the moment is Jay Ben still, but he's making good progress. But yeah, everybody came through, so yeah, a bit of time off away from each other, but again, refreshed and ready to go this morning, which has been good.
You mentioned Jay Ben. Any idea of how long with him, or...?
I've got an idea, but I'm not telling you anybody else. But no, I think what was a good thing in terms of what happened was that he came off when he did. He didn't sort of make the injury any worse. So we'll assess him on a daily basis and just be hopeful he comes back sooner than later.
The EFL transfer window shuts in just a couple of days. You've mentioned before about having buttons to press, levers to pull. Is there any options you're expecting to open up there when that window shuts?
Look, it certainly makes the opportunity easier for us to get players because of players in the EFL can only go to the National League. So that's why we've not been in a rush to do anything. The team have done really well. I still feel we need to strengthen competition, strengthen depth. But we won't be doing anything before that window shuts because of all the other options. Players that we've asked about, we've got the same answer on a few players. They're waiting to see what's happening with the EFL clubs. They want to put their players into as higher leagues as possible, which sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, we'll just assess that when it all comes around after the weekend, whenever that may be. I haven't got a clue when the deadline is, to be fair.
Just under a month into the season, what's been your biggest takeaway? Resounding positivity?
Look, it's been a really enjoyable period of time, the first month of the season. We did say that we want to try and create a happy environment on the pitch, off the pitch. I think we've managed to do that, but still got a long way to go to where we want to get to come the end of the season. But so we've built the stepping stones, laying the bricks of the foundations of what we need to do on a regular basis. I said all along, I think the players have been really a joy to work with day in and day out in terms of wanting to learn about individual collectiveness as a team. But I think they've also showed what epitomises this football club with dedication and being a spirit about them to never give up when things don't go your way. That's the first bit of adversity we had at the weekend, going down and not playing as well as we'd like to. Full credit to the opposition. but we came through it. And if somebody had offered me 4 points over that weekend, I think we'd have all said take that without any hesitation whatsoever.
Yeah, and looking ahead to Saturday, newly promoted Boreham Wood, but a club that have been in around this league plenty. They've had a good start to the campaign. What are you expecting from them? Another tough test?
Yeah, definitely. They've had some good results, and newly promoted team have always wanted to get off to a positive start, to carry the winning mentality going forward, and full credit to them. They've recruited some good players, good experienced players. I know Tom White well. He's one of my son's best mates. King has been at York, been in and around it, and other players that they've had that have been good National League players and EFL players. So we know it's another big test for us, different type of test, but one that we're prepared for and we're looking forward to.
Thank you very much again to you both for letting me use the clip on the episode. And moving on to the future games, we've got, again, a couple more in quick succession, if you like. We've got 3 games in the space of a week, effectively. We have Boreham Wood coming up on Saturday. By the time this is released, it'll be tomorrow. We have Boston on Wednesday. Both of those games are at home. I think that's quite important to state. We'll come on to that shortly. And we've also got Forest Green away, which is going to be potentially up there with Southend as our trickiest so far of the season. And again, we'll come on to that shortly. But starting with the 2 home games, first of all, Boreham Wood and Boston. Boreham Wood, obviously new to the league. They got relegated and came straight back up. Full credit to them for that, coming up through the playoffs in the National League South. And Boston, who we know all about Boston, given the drama over Graham Coughlin in the summer. And we did the double over Boston last season, which is weird to think considering how good they were, especially in the second half of the season. And Boreham Wood, we've had a very checkered history with Boreham Wood, haven't we, if you think about it? We find it very difficult to beat Boreham Wood, particularly away from home, with the exception of that 4-0 victory that we had once. I think Nicky Kabamba scored twice, if I remember rightly. But the moral there is we should really be taking 2 wins from those 2 games.
Yeah, I think if we want to be in and around sort of that, well, ideally top 3, but even if we want to just be in the playoffs, these are the games. I know Boreham would have not had a terrible start by any stretch, drawn against Carlisle, only losing to Rochdale on opening day, but these are the sort of games where you look back on them at the end of the season, if you don't win them, and say, should have won that. And how many times have we said that the last few years?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's the home form that is going to get us into the playoffs, you would think. Away form, brilliant. If we can get points, brilliant. But we really should be winning home games, particularly against the sides, as we say, that have just come up, the sides that were down the bottom end of the table last season, albeit with the form that Boston showed. And especially when you contrast that with an away trip to Forest Green as well, it feels like so far this season, we've done very well in our home games to win them. And then we've basically used that as a platform to go and either win away games or take a good point. And that point becomes a good point because we've won our home games.
Yeah, it does. And I think after talking to some Southend fans as well, after the game on Monday, these are the games that you look back on. Vice versa, the other games that I mentioned where you look back on them and think, we should have won that. They're the sort of points that add up over the course of a season. Say if we could go to Forest Green and pick up a point at York, for example, take points off all of the top sides, it can only bode well for us.
Absolutely. As the old cliche goes, if you win all your home games and get a point from every away game, you'll be in and about the top spot. And it comes with, a bit of truth to that as well. You look at the types of teams that have been up there in recent years, their home form has been invaluable. After the Forest Green game, we've got Brackley at home, which will conjure a lot of memories for a lot of people, I'd imagine, not least someone who we mentioned earlier in Darren Sarl. And then after that, we're away at Aldershot, we're away at the Gateshead, and we're at home to Tamworth just before that little tricky period as well. So, as we say, the more that we can win our home games, the better the away games will look, especially if we can only take a point from certain away games as well. Is there a standout performance so far from the games that you've seen that, stands out above the rest?
Individual or collective?
Go with both. I was thinking collective, but yeah, do both. We'll start with the collective one.
Well, for me, there's 2 for 2 different reasons. Woking, because I thought we were just brilliant against Woking. And also the second half on Monday.
Yeah.
Because I think second half on Monday we saw a complete different side to us. There was a lot. I've seen a lot of talk anyway about how's it going to be when we go behind, when we don't have it our own way, and I think that showed a lot about the squad that we've got.
That we found a way. We found a way to
Yeah,
take something from the
against a
game.
really, really good team, and we're going to be up there.
Absolutely. I think, to be fair, mine will be for the reason that I was there in your place was Altrincham. So that's the one that you didn't see, yeah. But Altrincham away was highly impressive for a number
Yeah.
of reasons. I mean,
Yeah.
Altrincham. I'm not going to say Altrincham were going to win the league, but they looked pretty good going forward in terms of how they
They
were
were
committing
always
men
there or
forward. They
thereabouts, aren't they?
yeah, they were trying to get forward. They were trying to put pressure on the team, and that is the first time that I've watched Pools in years, I would say, where it just didn't feel like we were going to concede a goal.
Yeah.
Even though there were a couple of last-minute interventions, there were a couple of scrambles, etc., etc. I just thought for the most of that game, that back five looked untouchable. And I mean, that's even more impressive considering obviously the J Ben injury and we had to reshuffle
Yeah.
and Francis had to go to right wing back. I just thought watching that game, we took our chances when they came. We got that goal right on half time, which is always a brilliant time to get a goal. And I remember hearing behind me as well, Radio Altrincham, or Radio Alty, I think they're called, but it's Altrincham Radio basically. I heard them say just as that corner was being taken, a second goal here will be a killer for Altrincham. It was just brilliantly timed. It just felt like
Yeah.
one of those moments before disaster type things. And then obviously McNally got the header at the back post. And
Yeah.
the second half was basically just us seeing out the game, if you like. And in the past, you'd just feel uneasy. You'd feel really uneasy because we didn't really have that many chances going forward in the second half. We just sort of having to hold, I think, is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we certainly managed to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's also a testament to the strength and conditioning coaches that have come in, because there's been a lot of talk about fitness over the last few years with Pools, I think it's fair to say. But, I mean, the amount of games we've played in such a short space of time and the amount of running a lot of players have done in these games, hats off.
Absolutely. And in addition to Simon Grayson, you also spoke to Jermaine Francis at Durham earlier on. And with your permission, thank you very much. We can hear from him now as well.
Jermaine, just coming up on a month into the season, unbeaten, not a bad start to life up here, has it been?
Yeah, not a bad start to life. Obviously, some people wouldn't have expected us to obviously do the unbeaten run, but I always tell the boys as well, just game by game, step by step. And yeah, it's been a great start.
Talking about life up here, what's it been like? 'Cause it's been a little bit of a relocation, hasn't it, this season?
Yeah, obviously, it was quite easy to adapt to because obviously I know a lot of the boys as well. There's obviously at times where we go out as well and they make me feel welcome. With the likes of obviously Bez and Cam, obviously they're my housemates as well. So yeah, I'm just loving it up here.
And we're off the back of a mental bank holiday, 2 games in 3 days. How's it been to get a couple of days now to just chill out a little bit?
Yeah, obviously it's been tough. Obviously we're footballers, we have to do it. Obviously 2 tough games that we played, Woking and obviously Southend away. Obviously we're disappointed that we didn't come up with 6, but 4 is good enough.
Yeah, and I think 4 points has been a little bit of a joke of a curse around bank holiday with the club. So coming out of that, 4 points, sat near the top of the league. Couldn't have really asked for too much more out the first month, could you?
Yeah, obviously you could be, like I said, you could be a bit harsh on yourself and say you deserve 6. The way how we played it in the first half against Southend, it was we started a bit slow, and then obviously we changed the system and we knew it wasn't working. We knew we pinned them back. Second half, we could have easily nicked it. They could have easily scored as well. But it was a pleasure to play in front of that many fans as well, and especially a lot of the Hartlepool fans. 196, I think, came down. So big credit to them as well.
What have you made of the Pools fans home and away since you've joined?
Yeah, I think they're the best fans in the north, and especially non-league as well that I've played under. Obviously, I've been at the likes of Barnet and stuff, but they're definitely better than these kind of clubs as well. And especially, they make the club more. It's like you wanna play for them more, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm glad to play in front of them every single week.
Yeah, and there's been a one word that's been thrown around with you, and that's versatile over the first few games. Normally a winger, you've played behind the strikers, wing back. How have you found playing all these different roles since you've came to the club? Something you're used to, or?
Obviously, like I said, my ability was obviously the technical side, but mostly my versatility. I can play anywhere that the gaffer asks. If you ask me to play centre half, I'll play centre half. Obviously, at wing back, it's a bit tough because obviously I'm naturally attacking minded, and you've got to be wary if the ball's on the other side. You've got to tuck in as a full back, and if the ball's on our side, you're basically as a winger, and the other wing back comes on the other side. It's been tough, and but I've dealt with it well. And yeah, just bring on all the challenges.
You briefly mentioned the gaffer. What's it been like working under him? Across a lot of experience.
Yeah, Gaffer's he's always on a lot of people just based off he wants you to do well. He always helps you and stuff, and always tells you where to go. And most importantly, he trusts you, because most gaffers wouldn't trust you in this league, especially if you want to get out of this league. So big credit to him as well.
Bournemouth on Saturday. Are you looking forward to being back in front of the home fans?
100%. Bournemouth, tough side, but I know we have to come out with 3 points. I think that's the most important thing. We're at home. We've got to take the game to them. We're not away. And yeah, we've got to have a lot of possession of the ball, and most importantly, defend well and score goals.
And just finally, looking to pick up where you left off in the last home game against Woking. Add a couple more to the tally?
Yeah, hopefully. I just want to do my job right. Obviously, I'm filling in for Jay. Most importantly, my first-minded thought is defending first, and then getting up with obviously the likes of Reedy or Danny Johnson, whoever plays up there, and supporting and getting crosses in and beating my man 1v1 and stuff. So yeah.
Thank you very much for that. And Danny, it certainly seems like Jermaine knows what it means to play for the club.
Yeah, he was talking a lot about the fans, and you know, as a fan, hearing that, it's so nice to hear, because he meant it as well. Because when he was talking about our fans being the best fans he's played under, and how the fans up here are just way more passionate, I think it just speaks volumes to what we already know, but that's already rubbing off on the players who've only been here a month or two.
Worth mentioning as well his excellent header against Woking.
Oh, yeah. Leapt like a salmon, I think they say, don't they? The technical term.
I think a lot of people did put that on Twitter, yeah. Yeah, but it was an excellent cross as well from Topolai. And Topolai is someone we haven't mentioned yet so far, recording today's. He's taken to it very well. He's got the experience from previous campaigns with Bromley, getting out of this division, and I think there is an option in January, if I remember rightly, to bring him in permanently. And based on what we've seen so far, it should be a no-brainer at this point.
I was just about to use that word. Well, them words, no-brainer, because that ball is ridiculous, by the way. To put that perfectly towards the back post from halfway line, wasn't it? It
was pretty much the halfway line, yeah.
Brilliant ball, brilliant header. Keeper didn't really have any chance without it looped.
Absolutely, and if he can chip in with a few more goals like that, because we've spoken about the attacking depth as well. We've got Alex Reid, who looks on course to get 20 goals at the very least this season. I'd be surprised if he didn't. If Danny Johnson can get going and chip in with, say, 15 goals as well as his strike partner, you've got other players that can chip in with 5 to 10 goals as well. If we can get that extra man in, depending on what Simon Grayson's looking for, then you know he can chip in with another 10 goals as well, and it'll look very good going forward.
Yeah, I think that the big thing is as well, our defenders are chipping in as well. So Reece McNally's header against Altrincham, Cameron John against Woking. If our defenders can start getting on the score sheet, whether it be from a set piece or what we've seen where McNally makes marauding runs from centre back, whatever it may be, that's only going to help the cause. If there is there will be tricky games and we will lose games this season, but if there's moments where that can spark a comeback or save a point or save 3 points, it's only going to help.
Absolutely, and long may that continue. Thank you very much, Danny. I'm assuming you're there on Saturday.
I am indeed.
And beyond as well, and you're looking forward to a nice little trip to Forest Green next week, I imagine.
Yeah, of course. Always.
Of course you are. Nice vegan burger in the ground?
I tried the vegan chicken nuggets last time. That was never again.
But thank you very much, Danny, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.